Brad's CSO, Chief Strategy Officer for Expedient. Expedient is one of the top managed cloud companies in the United States. They have 15 data centers. Their platform's world-renowned, Gartner Magic Quadrant in multiple areas. Just a really world-renowned company. But today we're going to talk and dig in on AI and your AI platform. Before we dig in on that, I would like you to share a little bit about your journey in building, your journey in exiting, and your journey in coming back to a company that you know so well because you're one of the founders of, where it sits right now technology wise, and where you plan on taking it.
Yeah, so I started Expedient in 2001 and built that over 5 years and sold it. But at that point, Expedient was an access business. So we had fiber in the ground, fixed wireless, essentially ISP type stuff. So that's telecom, and that world is where I come from, which is where a lot of this world comes
Yeah.
from. And sold it. We had data centers that we got in some of our acquisitions. Couldn't sell any data center services. Nobody wanted data centers. I think there was a mention of phones being in closets. That was where all the computers were. They were in somebody's office in the closet. So the ecosystem evolved over time to where people wanted to put stuff in our colo. I was gone by that point. Then they wanted to go to hypervisors, so they wanted to condense physical gear into virtual gear. Then they wanted to go to hyperscalers, AWS, all that kind of stuff. And now the current conversation is okay, I want this AI stuff. Like what's that platform? What's that infrastructure? How do I do it? In the intervening time, I built and sold a variety of software technology companies. And so my DNA is build, sell, build, sell, build, sell. Also build, fail a few times that don't make it to LinkedIn. So, but I've learned a lot from those ones. But like I came back a year and a half ago, and the management team at Expedient is still the guys that used to work for me. So it's kind of fun that I now have a boss that used to be my sales VP. It's kind of interesting. I just had my review yesterday with him. But it's like why come back? You know, me being an entrepreneur, Expedient being a $1 billion something company. It's like, why do you want to come back to that? I got stoked about AI. And so prior to coming back to Expedient, I was doing consulting for AI for a couple of years, doing the super nerdy stuff like model building and all the kind of dealing with PhDs and propeller heads and all that, who I love. That's kind of my people for all intents and purposes. But then I was like, I want to get serious about this. And like, do I want to go build a company myself as opposed to being a consultant? Or do I want to kind of be in a spot where we're selling the shovels and the pickaxes to the people that are mining for gold? And so I can see kind of what's going on in the AI world, see what enterprises are looking to adopt. I had ideas, but like those ideas actually didn't end up kind of panning out to where I thought they were going to be. So I convinced Brian, who's our CEO, and my old sales VP, say, hey, let's invest some money and let's figure out how we can build AI infrastructure platform. So not like a particular piece of software, but like what's the stuff that we can simplify with AI that our clients are going to want over time? And can we essentially take a lot of the complexity layers out of it? They can buy a platform and then we can help them build on top of that. So that's kind of where I got to this phase.
I think I'm excited because there's nobody better to speak to about AI with the passion you have, because you've been from network to edge and deployment of voice over IP, packet loss, latency issues,
Yeah.
kind of that whole. Then you get into data center, and data centers at the core. And so you run the gamut of all this technology. So when you think about where AI is in, let's just say, baseball, okay,
Okay.
is it going to first base? Is it rounding first base? Where are you on that field coming to home in the sense of where AI is, and where are you at in that build right now?
Yeah, so I would say 6 months ago, I thought we were top of the first guy in the batter's box, one pitch. Like that's where people were at. But in the last 6 months, I mean, we're all here to sell stuff. People are starting to buy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. Now I feel like we're running to first base. We haven't quite rounded it yet, but like we're in play. And I felt all last year was like doing sessions like this, educating people in the market. But there's a bunch of things people had to get their mind around before they're willing to write a check for $100 a month, let alone $5,000 a month. And so I think that that's kind of where the market's at, is the movement towards around first base.
That's exactly what I was hoping to. I thought your answer would be, hey, we're just barely around in first base. People went from building, so in between first and hitting, you're going, okay, I got to build the data sets to create value. Now I've actually hit first base. I'm starting around it, and the sales are starting to come in from this. People are starting to engage in that.
Hmm.
Well,
So I do have a great question to ask Brad. So tell me a little bit more about Expedient Cloud. What is the difference between Expedient Cloud and Hyperscale?
Yeah.
it's a
So,
great question.
like, our philosophy, whether it's the AI stuff or the cloud stuff, is how do we make it really simple for somebody to do business with us? So, when we think about cloud, I think the popular notion of what cloud would be, like if we asked our clients, what's cloud? They'd be like, it's AWS, it's Azure, like that's what the cloud is. And that's not really the right distribution of workloads to kind of deal with what their company needs. They actually need some things in a colo, they've got a mainframe, and they need some things that are in maybe a private cloud because it's more economical. And they need some things in the hyperscaler or multiple hyperscalers because, like, hey, we have seasonal business, so in December we need a giant amount of servers, and then we need to kind of go back to normalcy in January, February. All of those pieces are good in terms of like how you'd want to deploy for cloud, but like, do you want to have to manage all of them? Do you want to have to staff the people that know all the different hyperscalers? They know private cloud, they know colo. It's very difficult. And so when we think about cloud, it's like, how do we simplify that for them? It's like, you buy cloud from us, we handle it from edge to hyperscale and manage it. And so don't fret about where it needs to land. We'll work with you to figure out where's the right place for it to land, and it'll land there. So that's the way we think about it.
Do you see customers are actually optimizing on cost when it comes to moving to Expedient Cloud
Yeah,
or Hyperscaler? Kind of
yeah,
talk
for
through that.
for sure. So, like, I mean, opportunity for the market, just in terms of the channel, is there was a huge push to go. We'll call it cloud first, cloud native. Go to a hyperscale, and hyperscale is great for tooling. It's great for like those elastic workloads. But if you have a thing that needs to run relatively steady state, you know what its usage is going to be, it's probably 30 to 50% cheaper to run it in what we'll call a private cloud. And so it's like, okay, well, why is that worth it? Well, we have a client that we're dealing with right now that spends $1.5 billion a year with GCP. Like, saving them 1% of money is well worth like that
Yeah.
conversation. But the reality is they could probably repurpose 30% of their workloads to private. And you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of savings. They didn't do that because it was easier to architect their system when it was small by just going all in on one hyperscaler. And so, yeah, like when we're talking, hey, a client in the more normal circumstances, hey, we build on AWS, we're spending $5 million a year. Our CIO just left. The CFO owns the project now. CFO doesn't know about the technology. Please come in and tell me, is this right? So we'll go in and assess it. And maybe it is right. More than likely, we can redistribute and manage it for them. Why they haven't done that before is they didn't have the people internally that could kind of span the gamut of options. So it was just easier to say, yeah, we have people that know AWS. Let's just keep it there, even though I know we could save some money. So, like, that kind of dialogue is happening because the spend on hyperscale is pretty insane.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk and dig in with this AI and AI gateway. You could talk about the slide, talk about where Expedient's going in the AI space. I'm quite, quite frankly, flabbergasted in the sense of your involvement and your passion for AI and how it's going to be deployed in a business world.
Yeah.
And because there's so many consulting companies that say, I'm going to consult you and I'm going to engage you and we're going to help your AI strategy. But you actually have a gateway, you're engaging customers, you're building the story that is the foundation for that with customers today. And so it's a crazy story. And I think we're, again, really, really barely around in first. And that sales cycle is starting to hit clients now. They're starting to get comfortable with it. How
Mhm.
do I actually do this? I need to do this. I want to do this.
Yeah, so like a lot of education happened last year from all kinds of people pushing messages out, whether it's Copilot or us, et cetera. And one of the things that CIOs were realizing is, okay, everyone I talk to, all of my vendors are saying, I'm going to add AI into the system. So, like, what's a CIO's early concern? What's the governance and control around that? Do I have to manage 30 different AIs on 30 different vendors? Are they all SOC 2 compliant? All those types of things. So, we're like, look, why don't we make a single platform that all of your applications can use and be able to have like a guaranteed level of governance, observability? If you're going to get audited, we have the logs of everything that's gone on so that you're like, we can simplify that. Because in the AI side of it, so we'll talk about two parts. One, the AI part, and the AI part, just think about it as a super smart brain that's out there. There's a bunch of super smart brains. There's OpenAI's brain, there's Anthropic's brain, there's this new Chinese DeepSeek brain that's come out, blew out $1 trillion worth of value of our stock market. So like those are brains, but like which one's the right one and which one will win long term? I don't think anybody really knows that. And so those point solutions that implement AI, they're also making bets on which model is right. So, like for instance, if you use Copilot, you're locked into the OpenAI ecosystem because Microsoft owns 49% of it. That's been a pretty good bet in terms of equality for the last couple of years. But then this Chinese model comes out last week. It beats OpenAI in a bunch of things. Do you want to make a decision that you're then locked into? I don't think any of us, including us building a platform, know enough to say, hey, this is the horse we're going to bet on. It's the way that we look at the AI side of the game is we're betting on all the horses. So you interface to one platform, you get the governance and security around it, but we'll give you access to all of the different horses. And like even right now, the different models that are out there, some of them are good at different things. Like one of them's a great programming model, Claude's, and through Anthropic. OpenAI is a great generalist. Google's great when you throw it a large document of information. And so do you as a company want to figure that out yourself? Or do you just want to say, look, I've got one platform I buy and I get access to all of those. If you as an individual tried to buy access to all of those things, it's talking like $400, $500 a month per employee at the company. That's like kind of like it's a non-starter. So that's the way that we thought about the AI side of the
So if
platform.
I look at AI and I say, okay, I have a gateway, AI is about the data that you're putting into it.
Sure.
Okay. So you're all about the data ingestion. You built that gateway, you built that interface. Okay. And so that's what you're selling to clients right now is you're selling to clients at market that AI ingestion engine, that AI gateway
Yeah.
as a
So
core.
yeah, Randy brings up a good point. So I think about AI in two ways. One is the AI is the thinker, like the brain power. But so what if I ask that question, is like, hey, tell me about who founded Expedient? Well, that's so long ago in a galaxy far away that ChatGPT doesn't know about it. But if I hook that into Expedient's knowledge base and archive, we have that information documented. It's going to answer it was me. But like I need to hook the brain with all of the enterprise data that you have. And Dialpad talked about enterprise data that they have inside of the customer service area.
Yep.
But that enterprise data exists in a ton of places. It exists in like file shares. It exists, some of it's on Amazon and a whole bunch of different SaaS services. So when we think about the platform, we're like, part of it is how do we hook into the enterprise's data and suck it in very easily so that we can combine it with the best of breed AI to get the answers. I'll give you like a quick example. When we spin up a client, so like average client right now is $3,500 to $5,000 a month. Spin up the client, we give them like 7 different file folders. Try to give them something super simple. There's an HR folder, there's a marketing folder, there's a legal folder, there's a sales folder. Those are just open for their people to dump stuff in. So what did our HR team do as soon as they had that? Every document that they have so our employees know how to onboard and like what's the 401k plan match and what's the corporate policies on all this. They uploaded that immediately because that just took a huge workflow off of their task because people were just messaging them on Teams all the time. Do we have MLK Day off? Do we have MLK Day off? It's like, look, the AI system has all that. But from their perspective, all they had to do is drag 60 files from one location to another location, and now it's AI enabled. But that's our data that just doesn't exist out in the wild. You hook that to an AI model, the AI model answers the question. So the data part's great. I could give you the employee manual because I have that in the system, but like I'm not asking for the employee manual. I'm asking on page 248, what's the policy on vacation days? The AI will answer that based off of the data. So that combo together of making it really easy to get insights out of enterprise data, that's the thing that like people like are like, okay, there's ROI there because my HR people don't need to spend half their time answering questions when what the holidays are, what the different PPO plans are, those types of things. Same thing on the sales side. The sales team needs access to the whole marketing archive of everything you need to create a presentation about like what's the specs of this, or hey, I heard we have a AI promo that gives them 3 months free in a trial. What is that? Well, it's in the archive, but like they need the answer and the link to the PDF. They don't have time to kind of go into a third-party system and find out where it's at. Those are like little early wins where it's like, hey, if we make salespeople, if they can come up with presentations a lot easier, what's the value to us? And so like 3,500 or $5,000, MRR to start out with, it's not a large amount of money for people to commit to be like, hey, if we solve one of these 3 workflow processes, cool. It's value. Yep. Question.
So I just wanted, I think I understand, but are you saying this is a private cloud? So this information is not in the public, it's not on the wild, but you're still using some public AI to fuel this? Is that true?
Yeah, so like we're not an AI. So Dialpad talked. Hey, we build our own models and stuff like that. We want nothing to do with that. We're not that smart. What we are is we're a systems integrator. We can pull in the best kind of capabilities. And so, but when you send that data, so that private data, out to a public model, you have to understand their compliance and attestations around it. And so we actually ask our clients, like, hey, we can host a private model for you. Like it's not ours, it's open source model. We can host it privately, it's just very expensive. We also have OpenAI or Azure X, Y, and Z that will show you this attestation and compliance, and they won't train on your data. And it's way more cost effective. So we'll give you both options. Every single person has chosen we're okay with that compliance framework in the public.
So I'm gonna open this up because I go back to this because we have an interesting story in the last company I built because it's similar and very, very visionary mindsets and unique things. So I'm opening up the App Store for Apple. Okay. And so there was a foundation or framework. And so if I get this right, you become the interface, and all the other apps, such as these NLM apps,
Mhm.
okay, all are part of what you're doing. So you're not fine tuning what's out there. You're opening it up because you do see expertise in healthcare. You do see expertise in certain verticals coming up with these, AI engines.
Yeah, you're a better storyteller than I am.
Yeah. No,
but,
I mean, if
no,
I
but
get,
you have it right, and like, but the market doesn't understand that yet because they're just trying to get some value
Yeah.
out of it right now. But yeah, the longer term vision is, and I'll give you this example. So we deal with a lot of regulated clients, so healthcare or insurance. So there's companies out there that are saying, hey, we'll solve AI usage for the insurance. Like, hey, you can't quote out policy, like all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So the insurance companies, Progressive, they want to implement AI, but they need somebody who understands the AI regulations for insurance. So for us, it's like, hey, there's like 3 startups we know about. They're all 20-person companies with $50 million raised. I don't know who's going to be the winner, but I know I can put a toggle in our system that says when you use our platform, if you're an insurance company, for another $3,000 a month, you can toggle on AI compliance for insurance. And it just becomes like, to Randy's point, an app that you add on top of our platform. And all we do is we curate those. So what our kind of guarantee to our clients is the one that we offer you is going to be rock solid. In the same way, the AI models to me are just apps. You
That's
know,
all it is.
it's like, hey, we're going to curate these models and they're going to pass all the compliances. They're not going to train on anything. You know, all those things that you need to make sure that you're safe using it. Data side, same deal. And you're going to have toggles to be able to turn those things on and off if that like is relevant to
So
your
one of my
company.
questions is when the data is going from the gateway
Mhm.
to one of these NLM models,
Mhm.
okay, are you masking the data in and out, or how is the data being protected in and out so it's not being used on one of those other platforms?
Yeah, so the way that we do it is we have the ability to do that, but the actual like say we send it to OpenAI, the one everybody
Yeah,
knows,
yeah.
they guarantee that there's zero data retention and they don't train on the data. Like that's legally obligating. So we can turn on the masking if people want. That costs, you know, like let's say it's like a toggle because
It is.
we use a provider that does it. So we're like, look, that provider that we use is expensive.
Yeah.
It's $2 a month to have the toggle. Or you could believe OpenAI is not going to train off it based off of their legal agreement. Again, and we deal with some pretty sizable customers. They're like, we're cool with their attestations that they're not going to train off of it. We don't care that, you know, something confidential might go out.
Yeah. So so somebody that says they got an IP concern
Mm-hmm.
based on those rights across the board. Now the question is, there's hacks all the time, there's risks all the time. So what's somebody saying to you and says, hey, these great, but and they say they're protected, but my concern is there's everybody trying to hack those data sets to gather addition data. Where's the IP? Anything with IP related, somebody could go into that and start getting information. What you're saying is they're not even keeping that data at all. That data is not being housed or it's not being used to mature their models.
Yeah, you got it. So they have zero data retention policy. So you send it to them, they operate off of it. It's stored in memory, not on disk.
Yeah.
And then an answer comes back over the net, and then it's in your system. So like we'll log it, but you know it's within our control. But you know it still could be if somebody was that concerned about being hacked, we have the other option, which is like that new Chinese DeepSeek model. It's as good as OpenAI. You can host it locally. If that really is a concern, you can host it in our data center on our GPUs. And then the data goes from, you know, the app server right to the GPU and back. It's just going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
And so, hey, yep, it's your toggle. If that matters to you, like especially in an industry where you have like recipes or formulas for like making chemicals, those aren't protectable once they leak out. So like the consequence of the Coca-Cola formula leaking out is gigantic. You might say it's worth the money to spend.
I do have a question, Brad. So, as a new CIO coming into a company, and I've been tasked with AI implementation for cloud, hyperscale, whatever,
Mhm.
right? Where would I start?
Yeah. So if you're not implementing something currently, you probably got to figure out what is your security needs, what are your compliance needs. I mean, we were just talking about those.
Yeah.
So like make sure that your company's okay with it. We have people that we've talked to who are they're just like, yeah, we've heard what you say. We're gonna wait for a bunch of other people in our industry to do it. Because the last thing you want to do as a CIO coming in is make some, hey, I'm going to put this new untested system in
Yeah.
and it blows up and then I'm out. You know, so you got to kind of figure out the lay. It's more the lay of the political land there, and then can start having a conversation with somebody like us, or also maybe there's a toggle in an existing system that you have. Like, hey, we're already using dial pad. Let's look at turning that on. That's a lower risk thing because you're not necessarily using any data outside of the dial pad system, and then that can maybe get your company comfortable with AI. You know.
Because think about it. So you've heard AI for what, 3-4 years now, consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been everywhere. You're starting to see some value in the stock market. There's starting to be some, but the applicable use and for it to go mainstream has overcome that hurdle of the risk to the extent. And you and I had that conversation a couple months back about that too as well. I mean, it's you just explained. They're not keeping the data. You can mask the data if you want, depending on the type. Their contracts are in place. There's so much data going in that their risk is so high. Okay. And so I don't see where a CIO isn't leaning in over the next 24 to 36 months They're already leaning in with a dial pad or a Ring Central. All their voice data is already out there. It's being used in that way. Oh, we're going to keep it in our own environment. But if I get it right, they keep it in our environment the way that you have it and the way that you're using the NLMs. Click, click, click. I want this. You can mask to protect, and you're giving them that options on outside your gateway.
Yeah. The other thing too with the CIO, and I thought this would be a selling point, but ended up not being really a selling point, is like, 5% of companies have implemented AI across the board where all their employees have access. But like we know everybody's using it. And so what are they using? If you use free ChatGPT, they are using your information to train. So are you trusting if you have 1,000 employees and like 500 of them are using free ChatGPT that none of your information is getting in the system? So there's like this big gap between having like a level of compliance and a system that you control and what people are just doing out in the wild. It doesn't seem to be changing people's behavior. Like CIOs aren't like, oh my gosh, I got to fix that now. I got to give them a better option so that my data doesn't leak. I thought that would be a real sales spot, and it just wasn't. The real sales spot is, okay, show me by using this AI system how I can get efficiencies out of my company so that I can grow faster, maybe without adding people, or I can, make a process twice as efficient. Then people are like, okay, I know how much that process costs me. I know how much your thing costs. If it's at least neutral or close to neutral, let's play with it.
Awesome. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, that's it.
Brad, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.